Hi, it's Amanda here from Lolli Lulu Crafts, and first of all I would like to just say please don't adjust your sound. It is my voice that is croaky, not the sound. The reason I say that is because last time I had a cold with a croaky voice, someone actually made a comment complaining about my sound quality. Hysterical, love it. So I just wanted to apologise for that, but I really wanted to still get this video out to you guys. Secondly, this week we had a bit of fun and we actually had a bit of a poll as to which video you wanted me to post next, and this was the winner, so I hope you enjoy. So today what we're doing is a Cards for Men card featuring Stampin' Up High Tide stamp set and some gorgeous inks and some other bits and pieces as well. So let's get crafting. So the first thing that I'm going to do is make my card base, and for that I am using the Whisper White thick cardstock. It's a really good thick heavy cardstock for card bases in it. I find it works really well, and I'm just literally folding it in half. I don't need to worry about scoring it, just on a scoreboard it just folds beautifully. So just scoring down the back with my bone folder, and then I get a beautiful card base. So the next thing I'm doing is creating my matten layers for my stamped elements, so using my Sue Wilson double pierced rectangles, both in the original and the set B. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm using the fifth one down on both sizes, and the reason I use that is because when you just use it in the same set you have a 1/4 inch gap between them, but when you use the opposite sets it creates a 1/8 of an inch gap, and I prefer that. So then using the inside of the larger die, I'm just drawing around to create my template for my stamped area. If you'll see here, what it does is it actually lines up pretty much with the actual cut line of my smaller die, which is going to be the one I'm die cutting my stamped elements with. And this is also on Whisper White, but this is on the regular Whisper White. So now we're turning to our actual stamping, but the first thing I want to do is create a mask for my little lighthouse here. So I'm taking one of the layers. The lighthouse has 2 layers to it to create the great image, so it's a really fun stamp. I'm just taking one of the layers and then just a very pale ink, it doesn't really matter. I'm stamping that onto a bit of scratch card, and then I will cut that out to create my template. Now of course you could stamp this onto like post-it paper or some sort of sticky paper. I never really bother worrying about buying stuff like that. I just literally use regular cheap computer paper, cut it out, and then I put a little bit of removable tape on the back, you know, one of those little tape pens, and I find that that is totally fine for that. So then I'm using the grey granite again, and I've stamped that layer as you just saw I did with the other one on, but this time onto my template into position as to where I kind of think it needs to be. And then using Dapper Denim, I can't say that today, Dapper Denim, I'm stamping the second layer to create my lighthouse here, and I think that looks a really great mix. I've seen that also with the red for the second layer, and that looks really great as well. I will of course put all the information and all the links to the products on the blog post, and all you need to do to get to that if you're on YouTube is go to the paragraph below this video and you will see where it says show more. Click on that and you'll see a link to the blog post, and you'll also not only find all the links to the products used, but you'll also find a ton of photos of the actual finished card. So next I'm creating my kind of sandy base that my little lighthouse is sitting in, and I use Sahara sand for that, and you get that kind of element, and you'll see that there's like a section where the lighthouse kind of fits into it. Now you'll also see I didn't 100% get that right, so we will be fiddling around with that again later. And there is another part to the sand here, like another sort of blobby bit, which you can make use of as well. So I'm definitely going to be using a number of different stamped elements in both the Sahara sand and that Tip Top taupe to create my kind of sand base here. And don't forget, you can use that original piece, as you can see I have here, but I flipped it over and I'm going to turn it and stamp it upside down to create a completely different look and to create that sandbank going off to the side. So definitely fiddle around with it, change them around, do slightly different colours to create different texture, and you'll get a really effective base there. Next I'm adding like the sand reeds and plants and grasses, or whatever you want to call them, that grow around my area here. Now for this I'm actually going to be using green, but you could, I'm using garden green as you see, but you could quite easily use like a darker brown or whatever, so that you create more of a silhouette look if you want, or perhaps even more an autumn look by it being darker like that. But I really wanted just to put a little bit of colour in, and I just thought it would go quite well. The other thing is, when you do something like this that's a bit finer, don't squish the stamp down quite so hard, because that will kind of squish out that finer line and you don't get the detail quite the same. Next I'm going to add in my little birds here, and I'm really fiddling around trying to make sure they're positioned over a bit of my sort of sandbank that makes the sort of shape of the way they're standing look right. And for that I am using a darker brown. They're kind of more silhouetted, and I just thought that would work really well for them, and the way that the stamp is stylized as well. Again, don't press massively hard with these, because you don't want to squish the pattern out of those beautiful thin legs. So next I'm going back to the garden green and the grasses, because obviously before I couldn't be sure where I needed to position those, because I wasn't entirely sure where the birds were. And I am going off where my template is, and that doesn't matter, that's going to be fine, because all that does is just give me a little touch of that colour in the corner there. The next thing I'm doing is adding the little kind of shadows in a way, I guess, but because they're watery the way they are, they're kind of like lined. Now I started off doing this in Tip Top Taupe, and as you can see it really didn't work. I did think about doing it in that darker brown of the birds, which I can't remember the name of for the minute, but I felt that would be too much, so I went for chocolate chip, and I feel that worked really well, and so I just did that on all three birds. Again, you can see that quite a bit of it on the two outside birds is going to be off my template, but again I'm not too worried about that. So then the next thing I'm doing is stamping my sun, and for that I'm using the So Saffron ink. I just felt that was soft, that it went with the rest of the colours that were down there. So now we're getting to using my template here, because we're going to be putting in our background, so our sky and our sea. So all I'm doing for this is I'm taking a piece of scratch paper and I'm lining up where I think the horizon should be, and then I'm just going to put some tape to hold it in place just at the sides, and they'll be outside of my actual template of my stamped image, so if it does pull it, it's not going to be a problem. And then in order to do the base part, I've taken a bit of vellum and I've traced through the line, cut it out with a pair of scissors, and then I'm just sticking that down, and that means that I'm not going to be putting any of the blue onto my sandy area either. And now for this sea, this is the sea that we're doing now, I'm going to be using Island Indigo. Now you could use a number of colours, but I'm just going for the one colour, but I shall sort of shade it a little, and I'm just using one of my little eggs, as I call them, and I'm just going round and round and just adding the colour. That's actually a really good thing about the vellum, because it's so it's got like a slippy surface, so it really helps you take that ink and rub it over the actual card, you know, coming from off the card that you're inking onto the actual bit that you want to go to. However, you can see when I've pulled that back, there's such a sharp line between the sea and the sand. I really didn't like it, so I've then taken my little egg and I'm going back over that. Now I'm just trying to blend that in a bit. I'm not trying to make the sand as blue as the rest of it, I just don't want it to be quite as harsh. So as you'll see, I've taken some more vellum and I've traced and cut around for covering up the birds, and because now I'm going to be stamping my waves. In the stamp set there are some waves. That's that sort of one there. If you weren't sure what that was for, I wasn't, to be honest. When I first saw it, I was like, what the heck? But anyway, so that is actually for waves, and I'm just positioning that, and then I'm going to stamp it using this Whisper White. Now mine is super juicy, so actually I think it worked really well. I quite liked how it kind of went a bit smudgy. I think that kind of gave a really cool effect. Now you want to, if it does do that though, you want to make sure you wait for it to completely dry before you take off your layers that you've covered. Now what you'll have noticed perhaps is that there was a blob of the white somehow had leaked underneath and had gone on my grasses there. So all I did was take the Stampin' Up! Garden Green pen, and I just went over it and just did some flicking lines just to kind of cover that up. I actually quite liked how the white ink kind of blended with the green and gave some shading to that at the corner there. I thought that was actually quite fun and quite effective. So I found, you know, because if you have those, then that works really well. If you don't, use like a little tool and dop it into your ink pad and you should be able to do it, or just wait for it to completely dry and restamp it. So as you can see, my C is now dry and complete, so still leaving my template onto my lighthouse here. I'm switching my piece of paper down to the cover up the C, but what you'll notice is I've left a really small margin, like almost less than 0.5 millimeter of the C showing at the top, because otherwise what you'll get is that line like we got on the sand, and you don't want to do that. And I also put a template on my sun there, and for the sky I'm using this balmy blue, which is one of the new colours. And then as I did with the sea, I'm just taking an egg. I'm taking a different egg. I think they're called smoothies actually officially, although some of mine aren't the official smoothies from Creative Expressions. Some of mine are just like makeup ones that you can buy. So I just took that, and again I just blended it in. I'm making it deliberately less smooth. I'm kind of wanting it to have almost like darker bits and lines running through it, so that it looks like there's a bit of clouds and stuff going on there. Not even clouds, but just kind of whispers. And then taking another egg and the So Saffron, I'm just starting over the sun and then just blending out very, very lightly, just to give a hint of the yellow coming out from the sun, because obviously the sun isn't just in a circle like that, so I wanted to just give it that little bit of warmth coming out from the edge. And there you can see my sky is all done, my sea is all done, and then I'm pulling up my template of my little lighthouse there, and my whole image is done, and I think that looks fab. I'm really pleased with how it turned out. And then all I'm going to do is die cut that using that Sue Wilson, the smaller one of the two dies, and then using Dapper Denim cardstock, using the bigger of the two dies as I showed you earlier. I'm cutting out a layer in that, and then you can see how that mats together. And all I'm then going to do is use my Cosmic Shimmer and stick my stamped layer onto the Dapper Denim. Then next I'm going to take the Dapper Denim and Sahara Sands, and I'm just cutting that using a trimmer to create a layered area on the inside. You'll see that I'm going to be using the same kind of mat on the front, although I'm actually only doing the Dapper Denim showing at the top and the bottom of this one, just to give a different look really. But I haven't stuck those together yet because I want to stamp on my Sahara Sand cardstock using this world map stamp from Stampin' Up. So I'm just going to take that. I've switched my stamp platform around so that it will take the rubber stamps as opposed to the thin stamps, and then I'm literally going to just take that and the Sahara Sand ink, and I'm just going to stamp that twice across my cardstock here to create a map background. Then I take that matte background piece, and using Cosmic Shimmer I adhere that to the Dapper Denim, and then taking some Divine Twine, baker's twine in, I think it's blueberry, I just wrap that round twice and then knot and then bow the divine twine, just again to create a bit of interest, and then separating those two pieces at the end of the divine twine to create like a V. And then I take the whole thing using again Cosmic Shimmer and adhere that to my Whisper White card that we made right back at the beginning of this video. And you might not be able to see it at this point, but there is just a tiny little border top and bottom of the Whisper White that's been left behind, and I think that just creates a really good effect. And then I attach my stamped piece using pin flare glue, and the reason I did that was it gives it a little bit of height, and also it just sticks down that divine twine in place. And then finally I've just added some of these thicker letters in. These sort of got a map on them. They're really cool. I can't quite remember the name, but I will have it all listed on my blog post for you. And I just think that looks so cool with the map background as well. And it just says Dad. So clearly I'm going to send that to my dad. At the time I wasn't sure what I was going to use it for, but I think I might use that as my Father's Day card. And then the final touch is a gem. This is just a gem from Hobbycraft. It's almost like an iridescence rather than a plain crystal, and I just added that to the lighthouse there just to look like it's got a bit of a shimmer going on in its light part of the lighthouse, just to give a bit of life. And there we are, all done. Now obviously when I absolutely know what this was going to be used for, I will add some sort of sentiment on the inside there, but otherwise it is finished and I think it looks really cool. I hope you guys like it too. You voted to see it, so I'm hoping that you feel that it was the right choice. And just one more thing before I go, you'll notice on the photographs that there are some flying birds, because I forgot about them till literally the next day and the video had finished, and I saw them on the stamp set and thought, oh, I really want to put those in, so you'll notice those on there as well. So I hope you like those. Okay, so thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to go on across to the blog post to look at the photos and see all the links of the products used. Okay, thanks so much, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now. Bye.